You learned to stay calm even when you're falling apart because evolution demanded it. Because your ancestors, who screamed when a predator was near, didn't survive long enough to become your ancestors. Because the ones who trembled visibly, who let their panic show, who couldn't mask the terror crawling through their veins were the ones who got eaten first, abandoned first, left behind first. So your body learned something cruel and beautiful at once, something that sounds like wisdom but feels like a prison. It learned to hide. It learned to perform stability while everything inside collapses like a star folding into itself, turning all that light into a darkness so dense that not even truth can escape. You smile at the dinner table while your thoughts are screaming. You nod during the meeting while your chest tightens into a fist. You say you're fine with such practiced ease that even you almost believe it. And this is not strength, not really. This is the biological inheritance of a species that survived by lying, first to predators, then to the tribe, and finally to itself. The prefrontal cortex, that thin layer of neurons sitting just behind your forehead, is perhaps the most elaborate mask ever constructed by natural selection. It doesn't just think, it suppresses. It takes the raw, electrical terror generated by your amygdala, that ancient almond-shaped cluster of panic that's been screaming since you were a fish, and it quiets it, dampens it, wraps it in language and rationalization until what was once a howl becomes a whisper you can ignore during your commute. This is what we call emotional regulation. But let's be honest about what it actually is. It's an evolutionary override system, a neurological muzzle installed because groups don't tolerate chaos, because cooperation requires predictability, because you cannot build civilization with people who cry every time they remember they're going to die. So you learn to separate what you feel from what you show. And the gap between those two realities is where you live now, in that narrow space between the mask and the face, between the performance and the truth. But here's what nobody tells you about staying calm. The body keeps score. The autonomic nervous system doesn't care about your poker face or your professional demeanor, or how well you've learned to say you're okay when someone asks. It knows. It registers every swallowed scream, every suppressed tremor, every moment you chose composure over honesty. The cortisol still floods your bloodstream, even when you don't let it show on your face. The inflammatory markers still rise. The telomeres at the end of your chromosomes still fray a little faster, aging you from the inside out while you maintain that serene exterior. You are becoming older in ways that don't show up in mirrors, wearing out at the cellular level. And this is the price of calm in a world that never stops demanding it. Your heart rate variability decreases. Your digestive system turns against itself. Your immune function weakens as resources are constantly redirected toward managing threats that never fully resolve because a threat is consciousness itself, is existence itself, is the fundamental instability of being a creature aware enough to know it's trapped in a body that will fail, in a life that will end, in a universe that doesn't care. Do you ever feel like consciousness was never meant to exist, like awareness is a glitch in an otherwise functional system? Right? I've felt it too, if you understand. Because there's something deeply broken about what we are. Every other animal experiences fear as a momentary state, a spike of adrenaline that resolves when the danger passes or when they die. But you get to carry your fear forward in time. You get to anticipate suffering that hasn't happened yet, to remember pain that's already over, to imagine scenarios of loss and humiliation that may never occur. Your hippocampus stores trauma like a library that never closes, and your prefrontal cortex projects disaster onto a future that doesn't exist. And between memory and imagination, you have constructed a prison made entirely of your own consciousness. The deer doesn't lie awake at night replaying the moment it almost got caught. The rabbit doesn't wonder if it's living up to its potential. But you do. You lie there in the dark, staying perfectly calm on the outside, while inside you're running through every mistake you've ever made, every conversation you should have handled differently, every opportunity you missed, every way you're insufficient. And you've learned to do this silently, invisibly, with such discipline that the person sleeping next to you has no idea you're drowning. Staying calm became a survival strategy. But like all survival strategies that work too well, it turned into a pathology. You're not regulating your emotions anymore. You're disassociating from them. You're not processing your distress, you're archiving it, storing it in your body like toxic waste with no disposal plan. The tension lives in your jaw now, in your shoulders, in the chronic pain that doctors can't quite explain because they're looking for tissue damage when what's damaged is the connection between what you feel and what you allow yourself to express. You become so good at staying calm that you've forgotten how to fall apart safely, how to let the pressure release before it cracks you from the inside. And the cruelest part is that everyone thinks you're fine. They see your composure and assume you're coping, never realizing that your calmness is not peace but paralysis. Not strength, but suppression. Not wellness, but a very sophisticated form of drowning that doesn't make any sound. There's a reason why breakdowns happen suddenly. Why people who seem perfectly stable collapse without warning. It's not sudden at all. It's been building for years, for decades, every single time you swallowed your grief to stay professional. Every time you suppressed your rage to keep the peace. Every time you performed stability while falling apart. The structure holds until it doesn't. Until one small thing, something trivial and meaningless, becomes a final weight that buckles everything. And suddenly you're sobbing in a grocery store or screaming in your car or unable to get out of bed. And everyone acts shocked because they never saw it coming, never noticed the 1,000 small deaths you were dying every day behind your calm exterior. But you knew. Some part of you always knew this was unsustainable, that you can't run a system on suppression forever, that eventually the body demands what the mind refuses to give. Which is honesty, which is release, which is the terrifying, vulnerable truth that you're not okay and maybe you never were. The paradox is that the thing that saved your ancestors is the thing that's slowly killing you. Staying calm in the face of danger made sense when danger was a leopard that would either catch you or not in the next 30 seconds. But now the danger is chronic. It's student debt and climate change and political instability and relationship anxiety and career uncertainty and the slow, grinding awareness that you're running out of time to become whoever you thought you were supposed to be. The threats are constant but abstract, always looming but never resolving. And your nervous system, which evolved to handle acute stress followed by recovery, is instead stuck in a permanent state of managed crisis. You become a dam holding back a reservoir of unprocessed emotion. And dams don't last forever, especially when the water never stops rising and you never allow yourself to open the spillway because you learned that showing distress is weakness, that falling apart is failure, that calm is the only acceptable state of being. But here's the thing they don't tell you about falling apart. Sometimes it's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. Sometimes what's cracking isn't you, it's the mask. Sometimes the calm you learn to perform is the actual problem. And the chaos underneath is your system trying desperately to get your attention. To tell you that something is wrong, that you're living in a way that's incompatible with being human. Because humans are not meant to be calm all the time. We're meant to feel things fully, to cry when we're sad, to rage when we're violated, to tremble when we're scared, to laugh until we can't breathe, to express the full catastrophic beauty of being conscious in a body that's dying from the moment it's born. But we learn to edit ourselves, to compress our emotional range into something manageable and professional and socially acceptable. And in doing so, we became strangers to our own experience, performers in our own lives, calm on the surface, while underneath we're screaming into a void that never answers back. What if the goal isn't to stay calm? What if the goal is to stay honest? To let yourself be exactly as broken as you actually are? To stop performing stability you don't feel? To allow the people who love you to see you falling apart, so they can help catch you? There's a difference between resilience and repression, between genuine equanimity and performative composure. But we've conflated them, confused the ability to suppress with the ability to cope, mistaken silence for peace. Real calm doesn't come from learning to hide your distress. It comes from processing it, from moving through it, from allowing your nervous system to complete the stress cycle instead of interrupting it every single time because showing emotion might make someone uncomfortable. But we live in a world that demands your calm more than it cares about your health, that values your productivity over your personhood, that needs you functional more than it needs you whole. So yes, you learn to stay calm even when you're falling apart. And that learning cost you something. It cost you the ability to ask for help before you're drowning. It cost you relationships with people who never knew you were struggling. It cost you years of your life spent managing symptoms instead of addressing causes. It cost you the chance to be held while you cried, to be seen in your fragility, to be loved for your humanity instead of your performance. But it's not too late to unlearn it. It's not too late to admit that calm was always the disguise, never the destination. And that underneath all that practiced composure is a person who's been waiting their whole life for permission to be exactly as much of a mess as they actually are. The truth is you don't have to stay calm. You just have to stay. To remain present to your own experience. To stop abandoning yourself every time things get uncomfortable. To understand that falling apart is sometimes the only honest response to an existence that was never meant to be manageable, to a consciousness that was never meant to be calm. If you see beauty in the darkness of existence, if these words feel like someone finally said the thing you've been thinking in the middle of the night, you belong here. Subscribe to this channel not because I have answers, but because I'm willing to sit with you in the questions, in the uncomfortable truth that being human is tragic and beautiful and unsustainable all at once. And maybe the only real calm comes from finally admitting that.